how many great grandparents do we have? Now I'm gonna read them to you, and then what I'm gonna do is talk to you a bit about DNA and where we go from there. But here's the answer to your question: how many great grandparents do you have? Here we go. This is from Ancestry.com. So you have 2 parents. Grandparents, you have 4. Great grandparents, you have 8. Now we're going to go 2 removed. So 2 times great grandparents, 16. 3rd level great grandparents, 32. 4th level great grandparents, 64. 5th level great grandparents, 128. 6th level grandparents, 256. 7th level grandparents, 512. 8th level grandparents, 1024. 9th generation, if you like, grandparents, 2048. And 10th generation grandparents is 4096. So that's a lot. I could get my great grandparents to about 6 great grandparents back. So that's about 8 or 9 generations, depending. Because of course you've got, so basically you've got the 6 great grandparents and the me and my father and my grandfather, then plus 6. That gets us back to about 1724. And that means I am when I think about it, there are 256 people out there who are my great grandparents, or who were, and they're buried somewhere on this earth or cremated somewhere like that. And they all the way through that's just at the top line. Do you know what I mean? So then you add them all up to get them all together. It is mental. There's a ridiculous amount of people that were involved in getting me onto this planet, but that's no problem. But what does this mean for us? Well, let's look at DNA. Actually, it shocked me quite a lot how little you have in common DNA with your great grandparents all the way back. So in our minds, we're like, I am the son of this, who's the son of that, and father upon father upon father, back to the beginning of time, because of course you have to have a mother and a father back to the beginning of being a mammal, basically, and beyond. So that means there is a definite line between my father, his father, his father, and his father, all the way back through all of history, all the way back to the beginning of humans. But you share almost no DNA with these people. And not only that, you're pretty much interconnected with everyone at that point. So, the entire human race becomes interconnected. So what does that mean for us? So it means that I actually share more, or I have more in common DNA-wise with my uncles, with my cousins, even 2nd and 3rd cousins removed. I can actually have more in common with them, DNA-wise, and culturally and socially, than with my furthest back ancestor that I can find. So I look at my ancestry chart and I'm like, there is John Cummins from 1724, born 1724. Okay, but DNA-wise, probably about 1% DNA. About 1% DNA we share. And if not less, there's less than 1% DNA. And there's about 256 other people who can claim to be of exactly the same level. So what does that mean for us today? Well, DNA has shown how we are connected as family, but family isn't just DNA, it's your social and your emotional aspects. So in the West, it's a patriarchy, and we follow the male line and the male father line. And I can totally understand why now. So if you go back to, say, 5 great-grandparents, you're 128 people. So imagine 128 on your family tree, and you'd be like, oh, we go through so you can go back from 1, and then that way, along the female line, back 2, and that you can go many, many different ways to get yourself back to literally those, say, 128 people or 256 people, or wherever you stop in your DNA search or your ancestry search. And basically you share, you're one of them. But I think emotionally we like to go back through either the female line all the way back, or the male line. And I'm going to guess, but for males it's like I'm the son of, who's the father of, the father of, the father of. And for females, it'd be like my mother and her mother and her mother and her mother. And I could do that for my mother, but it's sort of like men tend to go for the male side. And I would say women tend to go for the female side. But of course, historically, women also went for the male side to show where they were from. And of course, then if there's a powerful family, that would come into it. So instead of a single line back. What you are is a single nodule moving through history. So originally, there's basically a triangle. These are the original humans, and bit by bit, they're branching out from a few hundred members up to 8 billion people, and it's going in a big triangle like that. And what the problem that you have here is you have to reverse it in your mind is you're just one dot in the middle of that, and you're trying to go backwards, a V shape. So it's totally crazy because the reality is the numbers are getting bigger. Human population is getting bigger. You are here and you've picked this spot and you try and go back that way. But it's actually, you should look at it the other way. You're one of the streaming people coming out. So it isn't it's all about how you perceive the way humans are born and the way ancestry is, or you look to the future. So for example, in 5 or 6 in about... So hold on, let me get this right. The 5th grandparent generation plus 3, so that's the 8th generation, there'll be 128. You will be one of 128 people who create a single human. So in 7, 8, 9 generations, you are one person out of a few hundred that create that one person on the planet. But you're also the great-grandparent of many, many people, because there'll be tons of people coming from your genes, your lines. You only need one child, and they have a child, and a few people have 2 child, and then that's it. Then you're part of that big network. Of course, if you have no children, then you are never going to be part of that network, and you're one of the lights that blimps out in the human history race, and that's it. So as much as there's not much DNA shared between you, the further you go back, the less DNA share you have. And that's great, because that actually means humans don't become inbred. But there's the emotional thing that DNA doesn't show, and that is somebody held a baby as a father, and they held a baby, their father held them, and their father held them. And of course, you don't got to include rapes and all that, but even that story, a rape, or, you know, the father died or something, or the father was horrible, or mother was horrible, whatever, each one of those people in your family tree had to be alive long enough into adulthood to give birth to someone that would help you come into existence. So that emotional connection, that I can go back to the 1700s and somebody's holding a baby and thinking in hundreds of years, you know, there will be someone of my loins, if you like. They didn't know about DNA, and DNA is actually really minute. But emotionally, you can go back and know that that was where you come from. And of course, that helps us understand where we fit in the place. I remember at university, they said you have more in common today with people on the other side of the globe. So I'm from England. I've got more in common with people from China than I have with my original ancestors, which is probably true. If I was to turn up in Celtic times, it would probably be a bit of a culture shock for me. Whereas if I go to China, the culture shock is not so bad. Walk into McDonald's, pay for the thingy, got a telephone, you know, the culture shock is not massive. But that doesn't get rid of the emotional ties we have, and we project into the background to our great-great-grandparents. And even if you understand that, there's, for me, 256 on where I've got 256 people I could pick out and find, and they helped create me. But realistically, we're looking for the people that the name I bear all the way back. There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Please subscribe, pass this video around, tell me what you think.